how to choose the right life insurance policy. In this video, we are going to look at the same 40-year-old individual that we looked at in the last video. Our last video, we covered part 1, which primarily looked at high cash value life insurance policies with Guardian. In this video, we'll look at options with MassMutual, and we're going to cover a couple commonly asked questions and scenarios here. So what we've got, just as a quick refresher, is a 40-year-old individual looking to move a lump sum of $450,000 into a policy. Their preference was to get that money into a policy for 2 years. However, they did ask for a recommendation. Specifically, they said, if 2 years does not make sense, meaning if it makes sense to spread that lump sum out over a longer period of time, particularly if it will give us a higher internal rate of return on cash value, we would like to know that before starting the policy. And for a 40-year-old individual, we can illustrate a policy with two payments of $225,000 per year, and it will look good on the non-guaranteed side of the illustration. However, if we were to kick that dividend rate down a little bit, or if we were to just look at the guaranteed values, a 2-pay would be decent, but spreading it out over 3 years would be a bit more efficient. So at age 40, I would recommend spreading the payment out over 3 years. Of course, it is up to you as the individual as you see different options, but we will look at a 3-year funding scenario. So specifically, we're going to look at the following, breaking that up over 3 payments, which will be a total of $150,000 per year for 3 years, and we'll see that to the right under funding. $150K per year for 3 years, total of $450,000. Now, before I progress on to our question in purple, here are the products we're going to look at. The 10-pay policy and the high yearly cash value product, and I'll provide some information as to why we're looking at 2 options here. It actually leads right into this question, which is this. After you move the lump sum of money, the $450,000 into the product, Mr. Client, do you want to be done with funding? Meaning you just want that cash value to grow and use it like a personal line of credit with no obligation to add anything into the policy? Or do you feel you'd still want the option to continue to add money? And depending on how you answer that question, I might recommend a different product. And again, we're focusing on MassMutual in this particular video. Here's what I mean when I say that, because a lot of times I'll ask that question and the answer is, I don't know. The question being, do you feel that you would want to continue to add money to the product after you move the lump sum in? Some people say no. They just want to get a lump sum in and be done with it. But many will say, I'm not quite sure. So my follow-up question when trying to provide a proper recommendation or show you what I would do in this case is ask some follow-up questions. Well, would you like the option, not commitment, but option to fund the policy, say for another 5 years or say through year 10, meaning you're 40 today, 10 years from now, you'll be 50 years old. Would you like the option to pay into the policy up until age 50? Yeah, sure, if it doesn't hurt me. What about longer than age 50? Probably not. Okay, in that particular case, if we know we don't want to fund longer than 10 years, age 50 in this case, the 10-pay would be the route to go. The reason why is when we compare the 10-pay product to other MassMutual policies, we will see the strongest internal rate of return, meaning we'll get the best bang for our buck, and with the goal of maximizing the cash value before even thinking about accessing it, that 10-pay product will deliver. Again, focusing just on one company in this video. However, if you answer that question a little bit differently and said, you know what? Yeah, I might want to go longer than 10 years. I don't know, maybe till age 65, or I'd like the option to continue to fund the policy as long as possible. I never want to be told that I have to stop. Okay, we can absolutely set up a policy like that. What I would do in this case is look at this high early cash value product, which does allow you to pay into it up until age 85. I'd ask if that's long enough because there are products that allow you to pay longer than that. However, most people say, yeah, that's good there. I don't know if I'm even going to make it that long, but 85 is perfectly fine. Okay. So what we're going to look at are these different products. We're going to first look at the $450,000 lump sum moved into a policy, both with the 10-pay product and the high early cash value product, and see exactly which one provides greater value. And then we'll look at the what-if scenarios, meaning what if you want to continue to feed a policy for a long period of time? How long can you go with each one? And as I look at the numbers and the funding time period, does that influence my decision? And when I say influence my decision, I'm speaking as if I'm you, looking at the options and trying to determine which option I prefer. Let's get on into it and have some fun, shall we? So what we've got up on the board, on the left, we've got our MassMutual 10-pay product. So this guy, we've got a 10-pay product funded for 3 years. A 10-pay policy represents the fact that the premium is due for a maximum of 10 years. However, in this particular case, we are only funding it for 3 years. So here, we've got the annual outlay of $150,000 per year, total payments, $450 by year 3. Year 4, nothing is paid. The premium is still due in this example. However, we are not paying it. We are allowing the dividends and interest to cover the premium payment for us, and then everything left over is kicked back in the cash value. So this is from the net or total cash value column in the life insurance illustration. Here we go. Break even, year 4, not bad at all. The high early cash value product, what we've got here, the 3-pay scenario, $150K per year for 3 years, nothing thereafter. Break even point, similar to the 10-pay policy. Year 4, but a little bit less in year 4. A little bit more in the first year, if we're really examining things closely, $138 compared to the 10-pay, $134 and change. Now, as time passes, which one would you rather have? Just based on this comparison. It's kind of a no-brainer, isn't it? The 10-pay product is producing more value. In fact, let's look at a direct comparison here. We'll have some fun, and we're going to see the cash value difference. So why don't we do it this way? Let's look at the 10-pay policy, CV difference, and this is going to look at specifically how much more or how much less I have in cash value with the 10-pay product compared to the high early cash value product. We'll color code this as well. So if we see it in red, what this means, for example, in the first year, I have $3,374 less in the 10-pay policy than what I would have in the high early cash value product. And this is isolating the first year. The second year, I've paid a total of $300,000 in. I've got $279 in cash value with the 10-pay, and I have $284 with the high early cash value product, which means I've got $42.85 less in the 10-pay policy. However, beginning year 3, I see that 10-pay really take off when I look at the comparison here. So, comparing and contrasting, if I am only moving the lump sum over, which one makes more sense? The 10-pay. And it's a apples to apples comparison with respect to the health rating, policy design. They're both 1090 splits, meaning a 10% minimum premium. We've got them juiced for maximum cash value. But I see one product is clearly ahead of the other, especially as time passes. So why would I even show the high early cash value product? Or I should rephrase that question. If I'm you, why would I even want to see the high early cash value product? Well, the reason why is the 10-pay policy. It's in the name. How long can I make payments? For 10 years. If you said, I want to go longer than 10 years, that's where that high early cash value product might make sense. So here we've got demonstrations, starting with the 10-pay policy on the left. So 10-pay policy, here's the example we just looked at, $150K per year for 3 years, stopping at that point in time. Compared with this guy, the exact same policy, but what it looks like if you elect to continue to pump in $150K per year. Now, as a side note, you don't have to fund $150,000 every year. You could fund just the minimum premium of $15K, maybe it's $30K, you can adjust it each year, so you don't have to keep funding the maximum dollar amount. We illustrated the max here just to keep things simple. We keep pumping the same dollar amount in of $150K per year. Same break-even point in year 4, Cash value looks good. So I've paid a total of $1.5 million into the policy, and my cash value is nearing $1.8 million. Based on the present dividend rate, the actual values will be different than what we see there. To the right, what do we have here? We've got the high early cash value product. Funded for 3 years, and then the exact same thing to the right, but funded not for 10 years, but for 25 years. And we can pay into it for another 20 years if we wanted to. So if you like the idea of continuously feeding the beast, adding more and more money, and not having to go through underwriting and start new policies, that's where it can make sense to go with the policy that accepts premiums for a longer period of time. Not everyone does this because, particularly in this case, this individual was very, very focused on one, utilizing what he had, the lump sum of money, and then number two, maximizing the internal rate of return. As the initial plan was to move that lump sum of money into a policy, and 3 years is efficient, asking the question, do you want to go for longer than 10 years? Probably not. However, that's this particular individual, and he might change his mind before starting. But everyone is different. You might say, yeah, I definitely want to go longer than 10 years because I'll only be 50 years old. I want to fund this thing at least until age 60. It is always up to you as you see different options, really determining how long you'd like the option to pay into the product. But let's take a look at this, but with an internal rate of return comparison. What we'll look at is the 10-year fund with the 10 pay and the 25-year fund with the high early cash value product. And here we go. So we've got the annual and average internal rate of return. Let's make this a little bit bigger here. To the left, 10 pay policy, $150K per year for 10 years. Annual internal rate of return. Net growth rate of all insurance expenses and everything that comes with that policy. Here's the net growth rate specifically. Let's look at year 10 to 11 because I pay in nothing. My cash value was $1.778 million. Now it's $1.866 million. What that comes out to is a net internal rate of return of 4.94%, almost 5%. The average internal rate of return takes into account, one, that I paid in $1.5 million, but over 10 years, not $1.5 million all up front. When I calculate the average IRR, it's going to take into consideration the year I made each payment to the product. After the 10th year, the average internal rate of return is 3.35%. That's the net growth rate. The dividend interest rate with MassMutual is 6%. Do you see 6% at any point in time here? No. And you won't as long as the dividend rate is 6%. The reason why is because with a life insurance policy, I have my dividend interest rate. However, what comes with it is the actual life insurance policy, and there's a cost for the life insurance. So those costs will drag down the net growth rate. This is why I love looking at the internal rate of return, because that question comes up. What did my policy grow by, or what was the actual rate? And what the insurance industry uses, if we request this from an insurance company, is internal rate of return. This is why we like to use this. So here we go. After 10 years, that's the net growth rate, and we can scroll down and see the same thing. And you are going to see a big difference here when we look at the 10-pay product and compare it with the high early cash value policy. So we've got more money going in, $150K per year for 25 years. There's my annualized internal rate of return. If I look at year 10, I'm at 414. When I still made a payment, 414. What am I at over here? 353. So there's a difference there. If I look at the average internal rate of return, it's almost 100 basis points, a little bit less, 2.44%. The question really is this for individuals that are torn between, do I fund for a short period of time to get a higher internal rate of return or a long period of time with a lesser internal rate of return? Here's the question. Would I prefer to put more money into the product and have a larger bucket of money earning a lesser IRR, a lesser growth rate? Or do I just want to get as much money as possible as I possibly can into the policy over a short period of time and get the highest internal rate of return possible. Usually, cash cows, someone that has a large chunk of money and they just want to move it from one place to another, the other being a life insurance policy, will elect to fund a policy for a short period of time because they say, I don't want to keep on funding it. I just want to move money from position A to position B and then be done with it. If I can pay a small premium or something after that, that's great. But ideally, I'd prefer not to. We'll look at the short pay. But again, everyone is different there. Let's scroll down. What do we see as time passes? There's a difference in two things, though. If I look at year 30, what do we see? There's a substantial difference in the internal rate of return. There's also a substantial difference in the dollar amounts. Year 30, here you've got just about $8 million. Over here, you've got $4.7 million. So which one's better? Sometimes our eyeballs go straight to the dollar amount. However, what we have to consider is the fact that with this one, we paid in $3.75 million, and with this one, we only paid in $1.5 million. This is a personal choice. And in this particular case, if the business partners are torn, one feels, I know I only want to pay into it for 10 years, and the other says, man, I like the option of being able to continue to feed this policy and only going through underwriting once. Well, then perhaps they diversify. But when selecting a MassMutual policy, this is one of the key questions we will examine, particularly how long do you want to fund the policy? That's one of the key questions. Assuming we're comfortable with the flexibility of making payment adjustments one time per year, the design will be very similar to Guardian, minimizing the premium, minimizing the expenses, and maximizing the cash value. My recommendation, I've kind of hit on it here, would be if you know that there's a good chance you're not going to want to fund the policy beyond that lump sum, which here would be 3 years, well, then I would go with the 10 pay. If I asked the question, do you want to go longer for 3 years? And you said yes. And I said, how about longer than 10 years? And you said no, I'd gravitate toward the 10 pay. If you said, yeah, I think I might want to go longer than 10 years, my response would be this. Okay, I can definitely show you another option. Earlier, you had mentioned that a goal was to maximize the internal rate of return. I'll show you an option that provides just that. But if you want the ability to pay into a policy longer, there are products that are available that give you that ability where you can continue to feed the policy. However, the internal rate of return will be a little bit less, but you'll have more money in there because you're pumping more funds in. Would you like to see that option? Yeah, sure. Okay. And then we lay them side by side just like we did there. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit the like button, subscribe for more. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below. And as always, I hope this helps. Thanks so much. Hey guys, Steve Parisi here. If you enjoyed the content you just saw, please subscribe, like, and hit the notification bell for future videos. If you'd like more information or to see some custom policies for yourself, feel free to call or email our offices at the contact information below.